Before we need to order, President Mr. Hill, would you like to read?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the audience today? Seeing none, let's move on to any corrections to the agenda.
Yes, we do have a correction. We are pulling item 6A, which is memorandum of understanding for the Tahoe Demolition District. That will be brought forward to the next board meeting.
Very good. And I understand Ryan will be giving a staff report over item 10. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. No other corrections. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar for the meeting? So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Should we call the question? Vote again.
It's wonderful this soon. It's okay. And that motion passes unanimously.
Very good. So item 5, we don't have anything there, and 6A was struck, so let's move to 6B. Let's see, Julie, go ahead.
Good afternoon. So we did before the board meeting, we met with the operations committee, changing that, to talk about this item, which is a request for reauthorization or authorization to rebid, I should say, secondary clarifiers 2 and 1 for construction beginning in 2023. We're actually going to amend that request and pull secondary clarifier number 1 off of the request. So I am here today just to ask for the board to authorize us to rebid secondary clarifier number 2. There's some activity going on up there.
Technical. You're having it too?
Yeah.
I don't know if no, we're just trying to trick it.
Yeah. I mean, I like to go right. Yeah, very good. I mean, I went through a lot of just like late last month, so I'm not like terribly stressed out. All right.
Ready? Okay. So the reason why we wanted to meet with the operations committee and talk about this in a little bit more depth before bringing it to you is because this request represents kind of a pivot from how we were proceeding, planning to proceed with these capital projects. Back in December of 2020, we had submitted an application to FEMA for hazard mitigation funding for the seismic retrofit element of the clarifier rehabilitation project. It is now February of 2023, and we have not yet received any indication from them that this project will actually be funded. We have already delayed both clarifiers 2 and 1 a year because we don't simultaneously we have to do one after the other. So they have both been pushed out on the capital plan by a year already so far, and we've had to make a decision to go ahead and proceed with board approval on the construction of secondary clarifier number 2 without that FEMA funding. It's not a decision that we take lightly because we want to be able to capture as much outside funding as possible from, our very substantial capital program. But, these clarifiers are absolutely essential to the functioning of the wastewater treatment plant and our ability to meet our compliance standards on for waste discharge. So we're in a situation here where if we do not proceed with rehabilitation of the next clarifier, we're putting ourselves at risk of catastrophic failure of secondary clarifier number 2, and that could impede our ability to treat and remove waste from the basin. So, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Rather than getting too much deeper, I'd like to see if you have any questions.
Something I thought about when we walked back in, and thank you for the quick tour. It wasn't where we took a nice little walk around and we looked at the clarifiers. Get the audience a little bit, so I appreciate that. Just thinking, if we were to figure out how to engage FEMA and get some sort of either special authorization to proceed or something else, would it be possible to do like an option or something in this bidding cycle for clarifier 1, or is that just too major of an option for contracting? Just trying to think how we could do it.
Yeah, for sure. I actually don't see much extra cost or risk to the district of actually separating these two into a separate contract, so I don't see a benefit of having that alternative, especially since the scheduled timelines for these projects is you start one in June, you finish it in November, you take a break for the winter, you come back the following June, and then you run that one through November. And so there's a big lag in the middle, plenty of time for us to, put together the last package and get it out to bid. And the contractors actually like that too, because they're not being asked to bond a project that's not happening for a full year. It keeps up their bonding capacity and keeps them from being able to work on other projects at the same time as ours. So, good process.
I'm just thinking, with the significant grant money we're going to receive over the next year, I don't know how all those, are required to be allocated based on how they're awarded, but is there going to be any funding we can look to dip in that sense?
Which grant funding sources are you talking about?
Well, we talked about, millions of dollars that districts have, not in particular, that's what I'm saying to you, we talked about multiple grants that are going to be awarded to the district. Within that entire basket, is there any opportunity?
So I think that I don't want to speak to kind of financing stuff, so maybe.
Well, what I was going to say is the problem with this project here right now is the timing. And I don't think there's probably going to be any more timing to actually secure grant money before you go out to bid to get it done this summer.
Yeah, but it's a week from tomorrow is when we're going to have this.
I think making it clear that, you can't start construction, you can't go green first, if you start prior to being awarded the grant.
But the most of the reason that Julia hasn't stated yet is that we actually do have an SRF loan to cover this project at an interest rate of less than 1%. And of course, grant funding, yes, is more desirable than a loan, but we've always had this backup source of funding. Another
benefit of pulling this this clarifier out and bidding it separately, without any funding ties to FEMA, is that we are able to scale back the contracting requirements to just be the SRF package, which had always been somewhat messy, because FEMA has their own requirements, SRF has their requirements. You end up with this really huge list for the contractors to comply with both, and so it'll clean this one up a little bit.
Yeah, and we actually have a call scheduled tomorrow with FEMA to talk with them and to help them provide us some advice on moving forward, so we can at least hopefully capture that funding for secondary clarifier number 1. And even if that delayed it somewhat, from what I understand from engineering, you're somewhat comfortable if 3 got delayed somewhat, because you have 2.
The third one, you mean?
The third one, I mean the third one, yes.
Yeah.
Number 1, because you have 2 new ones completed at that time.
Yeah, and we actually talked about that in operations committee today, but once we get the second one rehabilitated, we do have an opportunity to step back. If we're still waiting for FEMA to come through, we could then delay number 1 rehab a year and slot another project in its place on the calendar, so that overall our capital program is not seeing any more delay. Just kind of juggle projects. So I felt like the maintenance crew felt comfortable with that approach as well when we talked to them about this yesterday.
That's good. Whole statement. I'm just curious what the typical process you engage with FEMA for action with this.
So that package was submitted in December of 2020. And they do the, and that was actually submitted to CalOES. All of our communications go through CalOES. CalOES then makes recommendations after some period of time to FEMA for the project to be considered. And then we wait. And in the interim, we've only heard back from FEMA once or twice. Once with questions that we had to answer, and once from CalOES asking us to post the project for environmental review. Is that right?
It's like a public notice. It was really brief.
Some sort of public notice? Yeah. So these are all things that usually happen in much shorter order through the process, but it's taken like a year and a half. So.
And so, what's their holdup?
From what we've been told, staffing issues, staffing shortages, as well as just the number of disasters that have occurred over the last few years.
2 years is too far in the queue.
Yeah, talking to Yesenia, I thought it was very interesting to hear her input yesterday about how they make their selection. Is it like a rubric that they go through and check and put points and then it all falls out and it's very clear, or is it somewhat subjective? And I got the sense that from her it was somewhat subjective. Well, if the applications that have been coming in over the last couple of years are for fires and floods and hurricanes, and ours is a precisely rehabilitation project, does that mean we're getting overshadowed by these more urgent type of issues?
So once you get the thing, it's a competitive process.
Yes, they have a pool of funds to distribute, and they prioritize the projects as they see fit for funding.
Yeah, that's done. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I would like you to grab my notes here. Recommend you authorize staff to advertise for rebid for construction secondary clarifying number 2 rehabilitation project.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second, any other discussion? Let's go for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, next up is item 6C, is annual.
Good afternoon. This is the first time I'm addressing the new board. Nice to meet you, Director Hagan. My name is Dan Arce. I'm the lab director. I am here to request that the board authorize the creation of a new part-time limited term position in the laboratory, which will be called QCO, Quality Control Officer. Now, like the majority of the crews of the district, in the last few years, we have seen a great increase in the amount of work that we're responsible for. There are many more state requirements. They require that we sample many more sites than we used to. Our own engineering department has us looking for iron and pipes and so forth. But the biggest reason I'm asking for this is because there's going to be a qualitative change in the near future. Environmental laboratories in California are going to be governed by a different set of rules, something called the T&I standard, that is actually going to put us in the same sort of regulation environment as the majority of the civilized world, the Western world, and most of the states in California are already a T&I. California is a little bit of a latecomer. This new standard requires that we create a new position called the Quality Control Manager or Quality Control Officer, however we name it. It cannot be the present lab director. It has to be someone else in the lab that is going to have a somewhat adversarial relationship with the lab director, and they're going to be in charge of making sure that the quality of the data is always defensible, that every training document, every standard we use, every time we have a preventive maintenance visit, whatever happens in the lab, it has to be kept as a record. The amount of work that this is going to create is huge. They estimate up to 1,000 hours a year for some labs. We had an assessor come to our lab last month to do what they call a gap analysis, to see how close we are to meeting this new standard. And he was candid with us and said there are many organizations that are not going to be able to do this. And I told him that in all likelihood we might, we're asking for a position, and he was happy, even with a half position, that we are actually aware of how much extra work this is going to be. This is something that we brought up already at the October Organizational Committee. I believe Director Sheehan and Director Sutherland was there, and it was approved at that time. It's a part-time position, I'm sure we could fill a full-time position without a problem, but we're asking for a part-time for the time being. This position would not enjoy the benefits of a union position, and we're trying to offset some of the costs by increasing the amount of money we charge other water companies when we do their work. It is expected that many small labs are going to shut down because they cannot meet this new requirement that comes into force January 1st, 2024. So we have about a year to meet it. And I imagine that this will mean that we will have more of a demand for our services in the area. We are already seeing this. We're also lending, much more often in the lab to do work for other smaller water companies that do things like lead monitoring and daycares and that sort of thing. So yes, I'm here to request that you authorize this position. It's a 2-year position. And the reason there was a bit of time between this being approved in October and now is because we had to convince the union to allow us to do this. And I think we are successful in that. So, yes. Questions?
So how many are staffed in the lab right now?
It is myself. We have 4 full-time lab technicians, and we have a part-time lab aide. She's actually a high school student that comes in 2 to 3 hours a week, so not a technical job. So 5 full-time employees.
And then I guess the other question is, have we made the necessary rate changes on, our lab fees?
Yes, we did. In September 1st, we increased our prices by an average of 35% or so.
And then to what extent does that actually cover our fee?
I believe we did a calculation at the time. I think it's up to a third of it.
That's what we expect. Yeah. And you and I have had this conversation, but I thought maybe you could tell the board what kind of reaction you received to raising the rates.
A lot of reactions. A lot of these people that bring a sample are contractors, and how much we charge them is the least of their concern. When I tell them this test is now $50, no longer $35, it doesn't make that much difference to them. Some of them that are paying out of pocket thought that they were surprised that we hadn't done it already, in fact. So yes, there is no pushback on this other than the occasional customer, additional mortality.
Dan, could you speak to your overtime concerns with your current?
Yeah, thank you, John. And it's funny, we have never had this much overtime in the lab. I'm really grateful that the technicians that are there have delayed their vacations. They are always willing to come in on overtime. It's easy enough to tell them, you're being paid a little bit more, but that only goes so far, especially with employees who have been here for a while. I don't think I could push them to do a whole bunch of overtime again this year. They're already maxed out. They're waiting to use some of this comp time in this year. So this will alleviate quite a bit of overtime. I don't have the number of dollars that overtime has increased, but the lab used to not be a place with much overtime, but this past couple of years it has just skyrocketed. It has to do somewhat with the fact also that we've had quite a bit of employee turnover. We lost two full-time employees in 2018, as you know, and we have had a few new technicians come through, so we're training quite a bit more as well.
So is the overtime attributed to this new standard that you're trying to meet in this position, or is it overtime?
Only partly. It's mostly the fact that we've had staff turnover, to be honest, that these new employees take quite a bit of time before they can be on their own and doing things efficiently. So, but yes, as we had this gap assessment 2-3 weeks ago, and we have a plan ahead for all the work we need to do to be sure that by 2024 we're in a good place. That is still to come. We haven't actually tackled the majority of that work.
So this standard is relatively minimal, right?
Well, yes, it's been, since 2018, we've known it. In 2018 is okay, 2023 is, 20 years away? But, so little by little, we have made progress. Just to keep the lab certifiable under the old rules is quite a bit of work, and it's my first time, in fact, that I'm going to be assessed. This is going to happen in a month. So that, along getting ready with that, we've incorporated these new standards, started doing things differently. Right now, we're an amalgam of both things, which they tell us is what they expect.
Transition. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm for this. I think this is important, and I want to do whatever I can to support the lab. And I think what you do is a vital interest to the ratepayers. So I do what we can to get certified to maintain that certification. I guess I would request that if there's any way to kind of look at the numbers in terms of our services to externals and see if they can't get fully compensated for all those services. So we're not just recouping a third of it, but we're doing 100% recuperation on our services to others outside.
Perhaps I misunderstood the question. The third was how much the rate increases would pay for this new position.
No. This is not thinking more of just.
I believe we do recuperate our costs.
100%. Okay.
Yes. We do see taking on this work as a service to the community, because it'd be easy to say, we don't have the time, but we do need to do the test for the small water companies in the area.
Okay.
But we do recoup costs. Sometimes it's hard to tell. It only takes one customer to hand you on the phone 2-3 times for half-hour-long conversations, and they will, they'll have a lot of money to pay. So.
I don't tell you guys anything from, your.
We were in favor of it, and John was there, and we felt he told his story well, and we jumped the board, as he said.
Any more discussion on this? So, Dan, you want to read your?
Yes, I do. I would like to ask the board to authorize a new limited term part-time position in the laboratory titled Quality Control Officer.
Second? One second. Any discussion? Call the question.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to 16, board goals.
Thank you. And we're here today to review the proposed set of 2023 board goals. And the board has this proposed set. Just want to verify that, and the hard copy was waiting for you here today as well. So just to 2 weeks ago, we had a draft set of these goals, and since then I've met with staff and I've met with all of the board,
to provide more comments. And in general, really, there have been no major changes. We've added some details, some goals, and I've indicated the goal which, at least I think right at this point, are mission critical for our goals of highest importance for each of those 12 goal sets, and those are indicated with an asterisk. So I'd like to take a little bit of time, we're going to go through all of them for sure, but I'm willing to discuss any one as the board desires. But I'd like to highlight some of the goals that were changed or added. None were deleted, but some were consolidated. Okay? So I'm just going to pull out the set of goals and just go down the list a little bit. The first one, provide exemplary customer service. The monthly billing is a big one on here, and Brian's going to report on that later. We added 1E, maintain an ongoing meter maintenance rate of 1.5% or less, so I think that's very important. Moving on to 2A, this is probably really always the goal of highest importance to me, provide the necessary level of information and supports the board in a timely manner. Moving on to 3A, I think this is work with the Tahoe on potential water supply and consolidation alternatives. This is likely to be a significant effort this year for me and engineering and Paul and the board and others. More on that later with our 3x3 update. Moving on to 4A, provide leadership in our water partnership that's been so strong and worked so well for us this past year. And really to maximize funding from the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. We've asked for $10 million. We're going to work with our state federal partners to bring as much of that $10 million into the basin as possible. Turning the page, under 5, strategic and long-term planning. A lot more happening this year in this area. Management team goal setting in 5A. 10-year capital improvement program update in 5B. And 5D, a lot of issues with our collection system, and we want to get on top of that with an emergency action plan, give it a good chance of getting funding to make that happen, and work with the city and county and water agency to achieve that. Moving on to goal set 6. 6I was added, complete board workshop and deciding on course of action regarding surface water rights. Turning the page, to 7, this is a culture of efficient water use in our community. These are really, since 2 weeks ago, I just provided a lot more specific detail on these goals, such as completing these landscape consultations, water rights house calls, increasing our water smart soil engagement. And these first 2 items, 7A and 7B, they make a big push, again, with the water agency and the state to get funding for water loss and water efficiency efforts. And on 7B, we'll have more information on this later, but we're really expecting nearly $1 million grant to help launch a grant funded rebate program. So we're excited to see that, more on that later. Moving on to 8, we added 8F. Ensure annual employee reviews are completed in December. And that'll make others happy, and also we're looking for a better IT solution. Right now this is all paper and a lot of copies moving around the district. So we're going to work with Chris and others and look for really a better solution there. Moving on to 9. 9A was extremely important for Paul and a responsible budget for the board. We added in this 9A seasonal tools and software to forecast budget trends and impacts, model scenarios, and use reporting tools to communicate scenarios for decision making. So that's a new goal for accounting and finance. We're looking forward to tackling that. 9B, again, looking for more funding from the water agency. Want more of our tax funds to come back to the East Slope. So Dave and Kelly, I continue to push that. But we've got some great feedback from Ken and the Water Agency, and, this is everywhere they tell us. Moving on to 10, building and maintaining a respectful workplace and a district-wide safety program, those are big, important goals for the district this year. And under 11, really just added a lot more detail, specific to these goals, such as submit at least 10 press releases under item 11B and 11C, update our website and expand social media presence, make 5 posts a week on average to social media sites. And the last goal is at 12A, talking about the IT strategic plan. It's going to be really important, new direction for us. And 12B, just continuing to accelerate SCADA communications and bringing that IT into the field and getting tablets in the hands of our work crews so they can make quicker and better decisions and reduce all that drive time to all of our outlying facilities. So that's a little highlight. And as I said in my email to you yesterday, it's certainly very challenging and I think motivating and certainly a totally achievable list. I think it'll make a really positive difference for the district, for our staff, for our community, our ratepayers, and for the environment. We look forward to working with staff and the board, our community partners, and all others to make this a reality in 2023. So with that, questions, comments from the board?
I had one just, something that kicked around, and I actually didn't hear about it again, so just now, so I apologize for not kind of bringing it to you before this. But, we had talked about kind of, Shay and I in previous meetings, about, revisiting kind of the mission statement and district-wide goals. And so, as I reread, 5A, you could have meant 5A or, but look to, engage in that process, or at least I would say, even if the will of the board is at some later point, like, guys, we think we're good right now, but just have that dialogue and have that conversation.
Got it. Yeah, we've had it on the goals for previous years, and we waited for the new board to take their seat to have a discussion on that. Would you like me to add that discussion to this board set?
I don't have any objections.
No, I'm okay with that, as long as we don't, wrap ourselves around an axle and take 2 years. Strategic planning is a kind of a black hole, but I think it's worthwhile to revisit and see what we can tackle, right? Yeah, I mean, I think you can take it a whole, different, a lot of different ways. Some of the goals could be more aspirational. Some of them could be more, we're going to install 40 hydrants, what I'm saying, get into some space like that. But I fundamentally agree, keep it clean, concise, fast, things that are attainable, high level. Yeah.
So take a fresh look at the vision, the mission statements, and our strategic goal statements.
Yeah.
What about a relook of our name and logo? Any desire to?
I always joke whenever I meet people and they say, oh, yeah, I voted for you, you're on the stupid board. And I make the same joke a lot. I'm saying, I try to convince them to say it's not, but no one goes for it, right? And it's funny, everybody loves stupid. People are yeah, there's just something to it. I think that's you're good. We can't add it in. I think we can kind of go the other way and just call it even more completely, right? Have a bit of fun with it.
I think one of the board ran on make stupid smarter. They're not hashtag stupid smart. What is that doing? Everybody loves stupid.
But in 2018, my eldest brother, 7 years older than me, called me to congratulate me. They told me I always belonged on the stupid board. Yeah.
We'll recognize, I mean, really, and indeed me, I'm a fan of branding and, changing things for the sake of it. We're we're a monopoly here, and it's not like we're in competition with anybody. We don't really need to win business. So, just stick with it.
When I was on the water institute, I was the lead on that. We went through changing the logo, and we took a lot of time doing that. I didn't think was necessarily was spent.
Okay, I ran down under, looks like, number 5. Others, just really quick, I appreciate, the revisions and meeting with all of us one-on-one and listening. I mean, I want, just as the board knows, I mean, one of my things that I pointed out to John was, there's a lot of like products built in here that are going to come to the board in the future, I don't know when, but, just trying to kind of flag those so that we have visibility on them and track those over time, would be helpful. And I think John's looking at doing some subsequent, like, some attachment or something, like an addendum that kind of calls those out with more specificity so that they're just there instead of very, work products, the deliverables. And, I'll work with, Nick on that idea. I see that as, supplement, so you can kind of look at the goals with the work products by category. Any other comments? We don't need any action on the I haven't approved the 2023 board goals for the general manager. As amended, thank you. I'll make that motion.
Okay. There's no motion on the second. And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Very good. All right, item 6E, liability claim. Just have to run into this.
Yeah, so item 6E is in regards to a liability claim against South Tahoe PUB received from Scott Gabler. Scott is a customer. And so I'll give you a little bit of background on the claim, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the recommendation of the JPIA is in regards to this claim. Okay. So the history of the claim is that we have a property, and in 2019, while we were installing meters to this property, the customer had brought it to our attention that there was kind of a constant water flow coming out of an electrical conduit box and flowing across his driveway, and he was concerned that that might may be a water leak. So at the time, district staff had gone out to the property and taken a look at it, and we performed chlorine residual tests, and the residual was negative at that time. So we tested it a couple times. The conclusion that we made in 2019 was that the water was not a leak, but was still water, so kind of a groundwater that was coming up and flowing across the customer's property. And then in July of last year, so 2022, this leak of water had been flowing the entire time, so the customer called us and had us come back out to take another look. At this time, we got a positive chlorine residual test, and so we went back a couple times and confirmed that this did look like a water leak and the water was chlorinated. So we did a little more investigation and determined that there was in fact a water leak. It was on the customer's water service line, but on the portion of the line that the district is responsible for, so upstream of the water meter. So we made repairs to the leak, and the claim is in regards to damage allegedly caused to the tenant's driveway, as well as a retaining wall that's on the property. The property is on a slope, and there's a retaining wall up against the driveway. And so we passed that claim along to the JPIA, and they investigated and assigned a claims adjuster. They resolved the damages to the driveway in the amount of $20,679.84. However, the part of the claim that pertains to the customer's retaining wall, there's concern that the leak over time, over all those years, had either caused damage to the wall or that the leak repair that our crew was going to make could cause damage to the wall that would result in future failure because the meter is above this retaining wall. And so in order to repair this leak, we did need to run a new section of service line. So and Frank can talk a little bit more about the details we need to about how we made the repair, but essentially we replaced a section of the customer service line, and we did mold that line under the retaining wall so that we could connect it up above to the existing water meter. So the JPIA hired DFI Global to assign an engineer to assess the retaining wall and determine two things. So what the engineer looked at is whether the leak had already caused damage to the wall and whether it may in the future. The conclusions in that report were that his conclusions, the first conclusion was that the retaining wall did not evidence damage caused by the insured water supply pipe leak and subsequent repair at the time of the site visit. However, he did have a secondary conclusion that EFI cannot rule out the possibility of future related damage to the wall if the claims of damage to the retaining wall drain system and undermining of the retaining wall footing were legitimate. So the claims that he's talking about pertain to the claimant and customer, Mr. Gabler, was out and witnessed the repairs that we made to the service line and had concerns that there was inadequate compaction, that we had excavated too close to the wall within a 1-to-1 ratio, and that we had potentially damaged the drainage system that runs along the bottom of this retaining wall. So his primary concern is related to future damage to the wall, related primarily to the damage to the drainage system caused during our leak repair. So what the JPIA's recommendation in this claim was for the district to accept and allow the portion of the claim related to the damage to the driveway, which has already been resolved, and reject the portion of the claim related to damage to the retaining wall on the basis of the EFI Global report. And I believe the customer and the claimant is here, and so you have an opportunity to address the board if you would like.
I would like to.
Okay, if you want to. Yes.
Ask you a quick question before you do. What is the remaining balance on the insurance company is covering? I don't get dollar amount, but what it is.
They did not provide it.
And then, actually, could you talk through some of the photographic evidence that was provided in that DSI report?
Yeah.
There's some pictures taken at that time, I guess, prior.
Yeah, and I just realized that I don't have the copy that I printed out for myself. Did you have a question about one of the photos in particular?
Well, it looks like you kind of went through the series and looked at the existing conditions and then it had pulled some street map, like street view, some Google or something from, I forget the date.
Copy of the pictures? Yeah, copy of them. Yes. Yeah, so in the photos of that EFI Global report, looking at photo 1, that's kind of a street view of the customer's property, and this property is the one on the left, so you can see that rock retaining wall. Photo 2, they have a closer look at that wall. Photo 3, kind of another close look. So these were the field photos that the engineer took and based its conclusions on. Photo 5 is really the one that's interesting to look at because you can see that there is a drain that's shown by that red arrow, kind of in the lowest point of the wall there. And then you can see the yellow arrow pointing to the area that we excavated behind the wall in order to repair that service leak. So the meter is a little bit uphill from that yellow arrow. So this is a kind of a unique meter installation. Typically, we don't see an installation like this, but there were due to limitations when they assessed the property for, where to install this meter. That's where they ended up putting it, and that ended up making this a little more complicated. You can see in photo 6, that there is a crack kind of at that wall where it joins with the neighbor's wall. The engineer has noticed that the two walls are built differently. And that the claimant's wall is a stronger wall that's a little bit stronger than the neighbor's wall. But you can see that there is a crack in the wall there. And if you look at photo 8, you can see that that's right where the anchor for this telephone pole kind of was drilled through there. And it looks like that's where that crack would come from. Further on, you're looking up to the neighbor's house, which is up to the right, if you're looking from the view of photo 1. And then you got photo 10 and 11 are a little closer views of that crack there. But again, the engineer who wrote this report, his conclusion was that he did not see evidence of damage caused by the leak at that time of the site visit. And so I think what we're concerned about here is potential future damage related to the leak repair.
Do you know if there's any photos that exist of the install with kind of a compaction of the soils visible?
I don't believe that we have any photos. Yeah, so thank you for that. We did not take any photos during the leak repair, but the engineering report does reference that the customer claims that he may have some footage from that repair. Any other questions at this time?
What's the mechanism for the damage? What's the idea there? That it looks like the crack's right at the top, then there's the bottom, which would imply that so pushing on is at the corner, so it's right on the top. So what's the mechanism for the allegation that's our hole?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily that crack that we're talking about. Yeah, I believe that the concern, and I'll let him speak to it as well, the concern is related to the long-term durability of the wall if it doesn't drain correctly. Like one of the claims that's referenced in the EFI Global report is that, the claimant observed excavation in the vertical floor of the toe side of the retaining wall footing and then witnessed inadequate compaction of the backfill of soil along the footing. Claimant also observed the removal of some of the geofabric from the retaining wall drainage system, disturbance of the drain gravel and replacement of disturbed clean gravel with aggregate road-based material. And prior to the installation of the new pipe, the claimant discussed with the insured methods of excavation that would avoid excavation within a 1-to-1 slope of the bearing soil, extending from the retaining wall footing, or disturbing the drain system at the heel side of the wall. A satisfactory approach was agreed upon, but the actual excavation did not comply with the agreed methods. And then essentially, the claimant expressed concern that undermining of the retaining wall footing from the pipe leak and subsequent repairs combined with inadequate compaction of the backfill soil will result in future damage to the wall. So as I understand it, that is the primary concern.
So for an action like this, or a claim like this, how do you assign cause? Meaning, as I would see the problem, if it was an issue that we had created as a result of compaction and the other things that they're alleged, then would the remedy be an engineer designing the solution and then the installation of the solution? Would the claim based on that amount, or how else do you derive a claim like that?
Yeah, and then,
see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then I don't know what the claim amount was. The JPI just sent a recommendation that the district reject liability for that portion of the claim altogether.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a good one. Thank you for your time.
I apologize. I don't hear very well. Can you pull up this area?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time and for hearing from me. Just before we get started, I have to take a moment to, my honor, to speak for a minute. opportunity to do that, so unfortunately, that's been some latitude and activity. Yeah, I guess I appreciate Brian's outline. I would like to start by adding some things that I think are very relevant to the board's consideration on the history of the situation. So the timeline that it was, a year, a leak that took place over about 3 years, that during that time, I witnessed and documented regularly the subsidence of my driveway to the tune of more than 12 inches of soil being removed. I worked with the city roads about the amount of soil that was coming out from, this is from the Elks Club area. It's basically a decomposed granite sandy soil. And so this leak, it's a very mobile soil. There's no clay, there's no binder, it's not solid rock. So essentially, where the leak was surfacing, it was continuously, it's like a reverse toilet bowl sort of thing of sand coming up from underneath the solid surface, and then the solid surface subsiding as a result of that soil being washed away. This produced a plume down the road that is, even without it, in the curved section of the road is about 50 feet. It produced a plume of soil down that ranged from 6 to 12 inches wide. That was cleaned up by myself and my neighbors on a regular basis. That just kept returning for 3 years, of constant soil movement. In terms of leading into the repair itself, my efforts to convince the district to look at this seriously was that I disagreed with the findings in 2019 that it wasn't your leak. I asked at the time for you guys to conduct a more thorough investigation, in so much as there's at the time there were 2 full-time residents on my entire cul-de-sac, right? That a momentary turn off of the water in the area was an option, right? And ultimately, as the spring goes, it didn't obey normal, diurnal cycles, right? It was not more plentiful in the springtime and runoff and all that sort of stuff. This was a constant leak. Myself and my neighbors took the time to measure it with a graduated cylinder to see whether or not it was constant over days, months, years, and it was. At the surface leak, we were measuring it more than 50 gallons an hour on a perk-rate base soil of over 12 inches in rain an hour. And so underneath the solid surface, most of your leak is going down, and what is surfacing is still at 50 gallons an hour. And we observed that to be the case indefinitely there. And the constant nature of it made it pretty clear to the layperson that isn't a natural thing that occurs. It also didn't evidence the other things. There are other springs in the area, and all those evidence things like algae formation, right? And spring water has a certain look to it here locally that I'm sure your field operators are familiar with. The adjacent springs that are not 200 yards from the area, further down the road, that are, seasonal, all have this orange look to the water and all that stuff. It's crystal clear water, 24/7, 365 days a year, 3 years. It's pretty conclusive as to what's going on. So, in terms of just the history of it, is the leak is more than just the inconvenience, it's more than a loss of revenue to the district and things like that. It's more than the property damage that it caused in the physical numbers when the board just contemplated about what the real cost is. The cost is that this drew an incredible amount of wildlife to my home. I had non-stop yellow jacket nests formation in the immediate vicinity of this water hole. It's the only source of open water on the entire hillside, right? I had, regular attacks on my mailbox. I had a sheet of ice in, you know, in dry conditions everywhere else. I've got a 20 foot by 8 foot sheet of ice, 5 foot thick in my driveway as soon as the temperature is below 32 degrees. That I'm spending time and energy breaking out, that people are potentially at risk of falling on, that all the rest of it. So the actual living with this situation for that amount of time is a major inconvenience and a loss of use situation on top of just asking you guys to deal with property damage issues. So leading into the actual July 2022 repair, Ryan and others at the district, I cycled through a large number of individuals. Ryan ended up taking point, very thankfully from my point of view, after having been given many points of contact and having the same discussion with director of this, director of that, field supervisor, all these levels that keep saying that they're the responsible party. Ultimately, Ryan assumed that role late in the process, but it was credit where credit is due, greatly appreciated. That being said, my request before the excavation happened was for you guys to produce, using either your internal engineers or an outside consultant, was for you guys to assess the situation and produce as would be a stamped set of plans for the excavation you were going to do. I made that request both verbally and in writing, and because of the nature of how much soil had already been washed away from this structure, and my concern that removing the backfill, if this is the wall, removing the backfill side of the soil is what keeps the wall upright. There's a footing that's underneath the uphill slope portion, and the weight of that soil is what stabilizes the wall. I was concerned that you guys were going to be doing both, digging underneath the footing from the front side and simultaneously removing the weight off the back side that keeps the wall upright. As one of you noted, the tilting is a major form of failure of this. And so I was asking that you guys not dig to the uphill side within a 1-to-1, aka the triangle that is 4 foot high by 4 foot away from the wall, and not dig within a 1-to-1 under the footing in the front. And if you're going to do so, that you produce a stamped set of engineering drawings beforehand. I had 12-15 hours worth of discussion with your staff before this excavation, seeking to make that happen. I received commitments from Chris. I received commitments from Ryan, and I participated in a conference call with one of your civil engineers, making these requests, and I was assured that you guys would not dig within those areas, and that's exactly what you did when you came out there. You used a vacuum truck to dig right up to the back edge of the wall within the structural compacted fill. You vacuumed out all of the clean gravel that's part of these walls are drained by having the structural wall, then a curtain of clean backfill, of clean gravel, river rock type of gravel, fine, that allows all water to pass through, and then a pipe is perforated at the bottom that brings that out to daylight. What occurred is that your excavation team removed that with a vacuum truck, tore out the filter fabric that prevents the soil from intruding into that clean gravel, and therefore plugging it and preventing the release of a hydrostatic pressure behind the wall. You guys vacuumed all that out with a vacuum truck. You tore the filter fabric out. You dug not only right up to the wall,
but, I do have one disagreement that who I am, so to be honest, Mr. Lee stated that what you guys did was mold under the wall. That is not what happened. The mold, as I understood it, was introduced in a call with Chris Stanley, I believe is his last name, Mr. Stanley, that is a method that you guys would use, that you would produce like a 1-inch hole and drive the pipe through, but not excavate a wider situation. That wasn't used, that method was not used at all in this case. You guys came out, you dug with a backhoe right up to the wall, not within the one-to-one, but literally right up to the footing, and then you dug underneath the footing, about 2+ feet wide, removing all the soil underneath the footing, making the wall a bridge over that gap, and doing so with shovels and the use of the backhoe. No mold was ever used. That, in fact, was what you guys ensured me would be done within the one-to-one. Is that you would, as I understood, drive some sort of pipe through, and then your water line would follow it through that hole. And I, from my understanding, felt that was probably the best, the least intrusive, like highest chance of not causing damage. So going on with what happened is that then I pointed out to you, I asked your crew at the time that was present, I said, this excavation isn't going how I was promised it would, and I think you should contact Chris and others that committed to how this was going to go. But I wasn't going to get into a heated debate. I had several debates with your staff at the curbside trying to get you guys to honor the commitments you made. And hitting a brief pause in my narrative there, I intended to start my comments by just on the last agenda item, your mission statement. If it's not already there, integrity, right, and accountability, that isn't already in your mission statement, then I put in a request to speak on that with Brad as you were wrapping that item up. But when we're talking about lofty goals to meet the expectations of the public, those are like two of the highest ones. Make a mistake, own it, fix it. So you're going to do something, have the integrity to do it that way, or reach out to us and let us know why you're not, and then what you're going to do about addressing those issues. I decided beyond that point, I just continued to video and photograph what your crew was doing, because I wasn't going to get into any further level of disagreement with them about what they were doing on my property. But it is fully documented, the excavation that you did, and that you guys, your crews then did a single lift. Some of you are engineers, right? I think it's on that when I look at your profiles. Civil engineers, something like that, one or two. So I witnessed, and my neighbors witnessed, and I videoed your crews in the excavation to the downhill side, right, underneath the footing included. They poured soil back in to the tune of about 3 feet deep from the excavation that they've done. Right, so it's not even a one-to-one underneath the wall. They excavated a vertical step that's about 30 to 40 inches deep, essentially, directly up to the wall and then underneath the wall. They poured backfill into that and did no compaction. Not insufficient compaction, zero compaction. In my video, you can see that this jumping jack compaction device on the truck, I didn't use it. The two other witnesses that were standing there watching that, we expressed concern about why they weren't using it. They told us that this is how you do it. And you guys just dump the soil in there, and whoever you hire, the paving contractor, might come in and recompact it. I'm here to tell you that didn't happen in this case either. When you sent a paving contractor out to deal with the more than 50 feet of street that you guys were required to replace because of how much it had broken up and subsided,
you require to replace about a full lane for about 50 feet, adjacent to my property by the county. And, this trench in that depth, under that roadway, received zero compaction. Not by your crews, not by your eventual contractor. You had a roller there and didn't use it on the backfill or soil or anything. It was filled in a single lift instead of being filled like 10 inches at a time and compacted. It was filled, just dump it all in and then see what happens. So that's to the uphill side. I witnessed the same. You guys did no compaction. If you review even the El Dorado County standard details for retaining walls, you'll learn that compaction in this structural soil to the uphill side is not optional. It's mandatory. It is how the wall is stabilized. And the county, as a condition of the building permit to build such a wall, requires that compaction.
So, Mr. David, you're going into a lot of detail, and I think we're getting a picture that, your expectations were not met, and, so, rather than go along with them, what's your proposal? What are you looking for this board to do?
I'm asking the board to reject the alleged, or reject the recommendation of your insurance company. And the specific grounds of that is that I'd like to, as Mr. Lee pointed out, I'd like to point out that the report itself, as Mr. Lee discussed, stated that the report in its conclusions, item 2 in its conclusions, that the report doesn't purport to in any way refute that whether or not future damage will occur. In the discussion section, I'd like to point out that I'd like to just comment that the general nature of the report is that it's a self-serving report that is, although stamped with an engineer's stamp on the front, is not an engineering analysis, aka they're not assuming liability in any way. They're not saying the structure is stable in any way. It's a report that's written by a company that's in the business of trying to just be an expert witness against claimants. That's their job. Ultimately, the report starts off by acknowledging in the discussion section, first of all, this is the way the report was taken, which is not.
I'm just trying to get an idea. So you want us to reject this report and then what?
I would like the board to do what Mr. Klein, is the correct pronunciation, essentially had stated during Mr. Lee's discussion, that I have asked for the district to pay for the repair of the damage that exists, which is to say that the drainage system behind this wall is compromised, the compaction is non-existent. The report itself notes that if those two factors are true, then future degradation of the wall is likely. And I want to just make the board aware that not only am I under no obligation to wait for the wall to fall over, and the pictures document that the wall wasn't falling over at that, and that's true. it is not laying flat in my driveway right now. But that not only the statute of limitations for a public utility situation is that I make you aware of the damage, and then I have 6 months to take the report, not 6 years when the damage comes. What I heard in this is that your insurance company sent an adjuster out. That adjuster wrote up the wall as needing to be replaced for about half the length of the wall. She furnished me with that document. That document contained a bunch of numerical errors, aka had the wrong height of the wall, had the wrong width of the foot. So this estimate that she produced is a software that extrapolates costs based on things like the cubic yards of concrete. And her baseline of what the cubic yards of concrete needed was incorrect based on these dimensions that are measurable. So I asked her to fix those, and in response, she retaliated by hiring this expert and saying we're not paying the claim at all.
So do you have an estimate? Like, well,
I have an estimate.
we're trying to get it down to like, what are you asking in terms of, subsequent claim? What are you asking for?
So we're an adjuster produced an estimate that I believe penciled out to around $30,000 for the wall. I was looking at my own evaluation of that, because of the local contractor. The onset of winter, just after these communications, this report was done, I believe, in November. And it was represented to me at the time that this expert would come out and revise her estimate, and we would potentially work from there.
So the $30,000 is for half of that, right? Or the correction to the alleged, I guess let me put in 3 baskets. So as I hear kind of your statement, there's the methodology that was utilized for the repair of the pipe, and the kind of damage caused as a result of that. Then there's the repair of the half the wall. So which option, what's the $30,000 cover?
I believe that was her estimate, which I'm not sure it addressed.
So the $30,000 is what the insurance company is saying that we should reject. Is that correct? That figure?
I believe so. That's the most. I apologize.
Approximately. That's what that represents. What we're being asked by our insurance company to reject is approximately a $30,000 claim.
More or less. So your insurance adjuster produced their own internal estimate that basically was to repair/replace about half the length of the wall, deal with the drainage system that you tore out and that kind of jazz, more or less reject my claims regarding the driveway damage. Then what occurred is, I produced an estimate from a local contractor concerning the driveway and some references. I had a geotech engineer look at this whole mess and say that the driveway was unequivocally your problem, including the wall also, but so then the insurance company said, let's pay for the driveway, because I was essentially threatening your insurance company with a loss of use claim, that the driveway was so blown out at that point, it was literally sand, and that it wasn't going to be plowable, right? That we were going into the winter, and if we don't get something on this cold mix or something, that my property will become unusable, because I won't be able to access the driveway anymore, and I will be pursuing that. And so they caved on covering the damage you guys did to the driveway, and then said, now we're going to ignore that we ever even said the wall was our fault. And so the last estimate that I got from them, I believe, was around $30,000 worth of damage to the wall by their estimates. I don't believe that those were at fair market value for here. I believe that number is likely higher for the scope. She was identifying from the cracked area to the excavation essentially at the linear length and saying that that length needed to be addressed by.
So is there documentation that states that the deficiencies within that half of the wall? I'm not clear on that point. Meaning, you see what I'm saying, is there an engineering analysis? Is there something kind of from a third-party source substantiating, some of it what you're telling us today?
I mean, the tradition would be going back and fixing the drainage. That would be, I mean, your wall seems like, to me, it's still intact, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. And if we came back out to maybe spring or Chris could come up and really, further detail kind of the excavation and what we did or didn't do in terms of between rock and that kind of thing. It seems to me like it might be a pretty simple solution that we can probably come to here pretty quickly. I do want to hold all of this. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, a couple of, I understand the length and breadth of this issue is complicated. It's an untrue statement in this report that the crack that's documented is not on my property. There's no survey associated with this report. Roughly speaking, when you look at that image, the telephone pole is at the property corner. And everything to the left of the telephone pole is on my property.
I'm having a hard time really understanding what you're looking for in the resolutions. Can you clearly articulate that very succinctly?
I'm asking the district to take responsibility for the excavation that was done, to take responsibility for what I believe to be settling damage, including the progression of that crack that was done. And I'm asking the board to direct that you guys are going to cover those damages. In terms of quantifying those damages, the normal process for that, I'm a layperson in terms of these kind of insurance issues, but the community check that I have to take a look at it, if I want them to produce the final report, we're definitely going to court, right? Because that's about a $12,000 bill for them to put their stamp on the front of that report. He's taking his observations. He's going to be my expert witness, and frankly, that's the other thing I just want to point out, is that I don't think there's actually anything in dispute about your liability, because this report doesn't include a single statement from your employees. I believe if your employees come up here, you ask Mr. Lee if I correctly am telling you that I asked for what I asked you guys to do before you did the dig, and when your diggers come up and say what they did, I don't think anyone's going to lie about what happened. The report basically is the insurance company's adjuster trying to draw into question whether the report says that the wall is likely to suffer future damage as long as my allegations are true.
And I do want to really quickly, I think I really would like to just empathize with, I'm sure, both in terms of the hassle that's created for you for multiple years, the stress, anguish, things that exist with you in your home. I'm sure that all took place, and I really empathize with you, and I sincerely, on behalf of the district, I'm sorry. But I think, kind of the thought, part of the issue I'm having, just to be really honest with you, Candid, is, to replace a wall that appears, at least in photographs, in good standing, without first looking to, if damage exists, to repair it in its existing condition. I mean, generally speaking, homes or properties or businesses, you don't go into replacement methodology. We certainly don't do that here at the district because things are expensive. And so, to Director Renzo's comment, if there's a methodology or a way in which the district could go out, look at compacted soils, do some investigative work to see what we can do, seems like a very kind of straightforward, simple conclusion that we can start to make progress on. But again, to to replace the wall based on the concern of future damage before you look to address the existing soil conditions just seems like the inappropriate step. I would never do that in my personal life. I would never finance that with my own money. I would look to solve the problem in the cheaper, most efficient way, and that's generally how we operate the district. So I would like to see, some mechanism, security district that position, but look to, that to solve this conclusion in that manner.
I guess, can I ask Chris or Frank, if you guys come up and maybe talk a little bit through, like, is there a resolution, can we go back out when the commissions are appropriate and, replace some drain lots, put the pressure back up? If there's something we can do to remedy the situation, of course. And I'm just trying to get you, I'm trying to get you, because right now I don't, it seems like we're, it's really like, we're getting kind of wrapped around the axle on the paperwork, maintaining and some of the stuff. But I think, to me, it seems like we can get back out there and more appropriately put in drainage if necessary to maintain the wall. And that's what I'm hearing, and
I agree, and to tell you the truth, Scott, I'm really surprised that you didn't reach out to me if you were watching the excavation and you didn't like what you see, because one of the things I did stress to you was contact me anytime, day or night, let me know if there's something you don't like. When I found out about your issue with the water, I was the one right out there dealing with you the next day or two, what can we do to resolve this?
Yeah, I think you were out of the office, and so you've been to Frank, and then I had a push from Frank to the John.
You referred to our mission statement, that one of my main goals is to work with the customer as best we can. And I still stand by that, and I'll still work with you, any issues that we have. If it wasn't compacted right, I wish I would have known at the time that it was happening. I don't know that the drain broke. I mean, is it not flowing water out? I mean, do you notice for sure? You saw it?
I witnessed it, yeah. I took
Okay, so
pictures right into the hole.
So the drain pipe's broke and the water is missing?
Let me back up that stick. It was deep enough that I'm not gonna, I don't know that I have clarity about whether the pipe itself was broken or not.
Just the rock at bottom, you think it was gone?
The rock was taken out and the filter fabric was taken out. I don't know whether or not the actual pipe was penetrated or not.
Good. I have zero issue with going back out there, and I'd be more than happy to open it back up. And if there's drain rock missing, like I said, I wish at the time you would have related to my guys. I understood they were there asking that. But you didn't, they told you no?
Absolutely. I find out, hey, nobody got it. That's what he looked like. Look at him in the video.
Okay, you got that video?
I'm not prepared to play today, but I do, yes.
Okay, well, we've asked a couple times to receive it. If you don't mind, please send it over so I can verify this and see what was going on at the time, if you don't mind. The insurance company referred to it. Sure. There's a video, but I've never seen it, and I really would. I'm not trying to discredit what you're saying. I'd just like to see it to know exactly what was going on. If something was done below par, I would like to know.
Just want to propose something. Would it be possible to continue this to the next board meeting, and in the meantime, then staff go out and see if we can resolve this or come up with a path to resolution?
I wouldn't go out there right now with the amount of snow that's there. But I would be willing to go out in the spring. One other issue I'd like to ask, if I may, real quick. You were talking about the water was always clear, running year-round since 2019. Down the street there was algae growing.
Yeah.
When you told me what was going on, I came out, but you had told me that the neighbors had put chlorine down on the end of her driveway to get rid of the algae, so it might have gave us a false test. You heard some of that conversation?
I do believe that yes, we had that conversation. That I do believe that the neighbor told either you or us or me right in that time frame that there had been not an algae situation, but that there had been in the puddle in general, that the puddle, much like I represented to the board, was turning into a mosquito bloom. And so she basically the combination of mosquitoes and the yellow jackets are producing like a wall.
Yeah, that's right.
And our mailboxes are right there and all that. And so she did state that And I shared with you that just prior, that she told me that sometime in the summer of 2022, that she applied some kind of like spa chemical to try to abate the mosquitoes. Yes.
I have zero issue with going back in the summer, if it's okay with you being there, then I'll come out and sit there and take a look. We run across retaining walls all the time. That's just part of our job, with us retaining walls and behind, just about every flower bed, you name it. And if anything goes wrong, we're more than willing to stand behind it, and yes, this could have been the cause of it. A 2-foot wide ditch, on a length of wall like that, if something happens within that 2 feet, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that we weren't in the excavator, but if you give us the opportunity, let's go out and take a look at what the rock and the filter fence and.
So, Joe, I think,
If I can just,
we don't have in front of us a way to resolve this today, or can resolve this today. We don't have a number, we don't. I think the board wants to look at this retaining wall issue more. Doesn't want to just outright reject it the way, recommended by the insurance company, but we need more information, we need more. So, John, if you could, propose some way to go through some more fact finding and then bring this back to the board at a later date, that would be probably the best way.
I would like to be heard real quick on just response to the proposition at hand is, sadly, as evidenced by the history that I provided you here today, I didn't want any of this to happen. I never wanted to stand here. I wanted the repair to be undertaken in a way that avoided future issues. But with all due respect, I think we're way past the solution that you're contemplating, because this occurred in the middle of the summer, and then contrary to my wishes, your insurance company has drugged this out to this point, including withholding this report for about 3 months. Right now, I'm at the point that by statute of limitations, I have a very tight time frame on filing a lawsuit against you, and I'm going to win that lawsuit, just flat out. And I don't want to do that. That's why I'm here today. I'm asking you to craft a method that we don't go to court. I'm a citizen here. I work at LTCC right next door. Nobody wins by that procedure, but in terms of what I need is I need a solution to this that is durable. And frankly speaking, you guys coming out after the fact and trying to mitigate damage 12 months later, kind of thing, to that tune of time, 9 months later, on something that has been taking damage through that time. It also has no legs to me. I appreciate Chris as a man coming up here, and I appreciate you coming out and meeting with me and all that jazz, but his word is not a legal binding thing. Your insurance company asked me to sign a forever indemnification of you. That's what they asked for. And I refuse to do that because I can't warrant that 10 years from now that won't happen. So I need an independent contractor to do this work, because I need the requirement that they do it to the building code, that they got a stamped engineer who's now responsible for life, right, has insurance for any malpractice if they design a fix that isn't going to work, and all that stuff. I can't accept the handshake agreement that if this section of the wall ever fails 3 elections from now and a different board is before me, that I come in and beg you guys to own, and then have to face that, prove that the damage is, 10 years from now as a result of this excavation. Right? Imagine if one of your facilities that you guys care about, imagine if the neighbor to that dug underneath the foundation and then just threw loose filling and said,
Yeah, just come back and talk to me, because analogy, and I don't ever
Totally on that for a minute, and I go back to what I said previously. I really have to be just right with you again. The idea that there was kind of error, I think that involves investigative work, needs possible solutions. So the idea that error necessitates the complete replacement of a wall, to your exact analogy you provided, if that happened to any of our facilities here, we would not replace the asset in its entirety, even half of it. Because that's not a fiscally responsible way to handle repairs and replacements and issues. And so, I support generally Director Peterson's recommendation. Unfortunately, if forced to make a vote, I would vote with the recommendation for staff. Because we in the district, in responsibility and fairness to all of our ratepayers, without the information provided, we don't have the analysis from the geotech sitting here. I don't have any of the documentation with you. So, and to be forthright and speaking to the DPUD crew, I would speak to any member of this community I have, when asked their character, their quality, and their dedication to the job. And every facet of everything I've ever seen them do. And so, based on that and many different things, I think the appropriate mechanism would be to reevaluate and take the simple solution. And absent that, for decisions today, I would vote to support the staff's recommendation.
And I don't want to call that a question today. I'd like to continue this item to the next board meeting, and it'll be either an open or closed session. We've identified potential litigation that could push us into closed session to discuss this item. So I'm going to leave that for staff to contemplate how we should bring this back, but we need to do more homework before the board can do anything on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Gabler. So we're going to move on with no action from this item. All right, let's go to item 7. Any standing in our committee reports. Let's see the Tahoe keys on to the end, and I'm going to step out when I'm coming to that.
No, just to keep it there.
Yeah, so I did attend last week the redevelopment successor agency county open select board meeting, which was pretty fairly uneventful, like a annual thing. They actually approved the minutes of the last meeting, which was a year ago, and then we approved a resolution to approve the ROP, the recognized obligation. And then we'll let it
outside of the 3x3.
Okay, I'll just report that in executive committee minimum about 120 was personnel matter, so nothing to report here. I don't have any reports. Then I'm going to step out what you did with Tahoe keys.
Days wearing a t-shirt today.
I'm trying to read
Yeah, I shots of it. No, I thought the 3x3 meeting with the teams went really well. It was a Tuesday afternoon, met here at the district office. Shane, I think, just some of my thoughts on the meeting. Really what was discussed most substantively was the ability to kind of move forward on what we're calling really the next steps of the evaluation. And what that is the status of the Keys facility, cost to bring it up to kind of there to mimic what the DPUD and making sure both systems can function correctly. And so kind of going to the cost share and all these together on Mr. Shane, what was asked by the Keys was to put quote unquote get it again. To be honest, I was rather reluctant at first to kind of commit to putting skin in the game beyond kind of staff legal time. However, I did have a great interest in seeing where this evaluation goes, primarily because if this was to be successful, one of the objectives
I think we'd love to see kind of advance is a water intake line, and I think this is a perfect exercise to achieve that. So, in fairness to that concept and the ability to move forward, plus the community benefit and help that members of our community could use through this, the need to engage with a new water provider. I was in favor of cost sharing, but I did have one, and I said we did have one agreement with the keys that in the event that this evaluation that we're participating in Ontario forward, if it does not come to fruition that we develop a marriage, as we like referring to it at the meeting, that they will, and they use this report, to farm this out to another source to take over the facility, that they will pay us for that. We're not paying for the research to shop this around. So if it doesn't come to us, then we're going to be reimbursed for that cost share. I thought that was a discussed agreement, but that we got to that agreement in the end. And there's a lot of other points about profits.
Okay, survey committee of two, their board members, Shelby, Councilor, and Ken Sullivan. Sorry. And then, Nick, myself, and then John. A lot of it was really just trying to, still kind of formulate our commitment to participating with keys and this transition between, basically finding a solution to providing water to them. And so, a lot of items are talked about. We talked about basically phases 3A and 3B, which were very instrumental in getting the first two phases of this done, which is really assessments associated with our own system, basically provisions, things that we need to do to kind of bring our system up to smart in order to supply the keys water, right? So now moving to the key side of things. The first phase 3A is essentially a work plan, which is really going to kind of define what the assessments look like. It's going to be kind of this gap analysis type thing. So part of it also was a proposal that was developed by HDR, John Korn, who basically was taking a look following, I guess it would have to be after the assessment, in terms of what kinds of rates and kind of valuation would be assigned to the Tahoe Keys water system. It was very, very in-depth, lengthy conversation. I think at the end of the day, we were able to kind of come to a solution and identify some potential avenues for funding, both 3A and 3B, and that was through the Colorado County Water Agency. It sounds like there's going to be more conversations with campaign there, and I think that's going to be helpful for us in terms of they might be able to assume these half of the cost of phase 3A and 3B, which would be helpful, and then we would divide that. And then ultimately, I think any kind of outlays that the SDG moves forward would be probably ultimately rolled into that rate structure that we would assign to the Tahoe Keys special district area. So ultimately, I guess we all resolved that we're going to continue to work with the Tahoe Keys on finding some pathway forward and finding a solution to the SDGV taking over their water facilities. So that's kind of where I left off. John, you want to add anything on that?
Maybe one thing to add in regards to the current reimbursement agreement that we have with the Tahoe Keys. The Tahoe Keys has been paying for all these costs, consulting costs for phase 1 and 2 for our staff and legal time. And that's currently would add up to about $86,000. So we have a little room left on the $100,000 the third board has approved. When we left the 3x3 meeting, we're going to go back and be able to push that 100 to 120,000. So there's going to be enough room to get this phase 3A done, which is about $30,000. So we're going to modify that reimbursement agreement, and the keys will bump that from 100 to 120. We'll be able to Kennedy James and get phase 3A going.
And just to add, the timing you're looking for some kind of something, agreement, MOU, something in 6 months to kind of like fully committed to this. And I think there's a little bit of a lack of comfort in that we don't feel like this assessment, this 3D assessment will be completed by then. So there's a little bit of uncertainty that's associated with that, just so everybody on the board is aware that we're moving forward in good faith. I don't know if you want to add anything, John.
Yeah, the key was, have an alternative where we would put our contract and have the agreement done before all this analysis work was done. And, I think we, did not like that idea. I mean, I know they want to get this done, but, I think our perspective is we need to know the condition of that system, so we know it's going to cost, and so if there are ratepayers knows what kind of rates are coming forward. There are ratepayers out there, any cost to improve their system. So I feel like, and I think, the community felt like we needed to finish 3A and 3B and find out what needs to be done and when, and move on from there.
I'd like to cart before the horse on some of this stuff.
Unfortunately, I mentioned my disdain for all the grants.
Yeah, I think they took that big round and made a lot of progress.
Shout out to the board members as well. It was really, honest, fruitful conversation, good people, so yeah, it's good.
You ready to bring them back in?
Sure.
You may answer.
It's recommending all of this. Are you thinking yeah, members?
I miss all the fun. All right, I made any other board member reports. Everyone at one agency meets on that date, so no report there. Staff and attorney reports. Brian, I believe you're queued up here.
Yeah, and I will make this brief, but I just wanted to get your board an update on our monthly billing. So last spring, the board authorized and directed us to move forward with converting from quarterly to monthly utility billing. Over the last 9 months or so, we've been working on that. We've done a lot of customer outreach, a lot of software testing and tweaks to make the necessary changes. So all of that kind of culminated with our first monthly billing generation yesterday. So we successfully, we did a lot of testing over the last couple of weeks. We did not have a bill during January since we've made the switch to kind of billing in arrears, which will align us with the way that every other utility bills. So our first monthly bills are going out in the mail today, and we generated all of those cycles yesterday successfully. We have a new person who is in charge of billing and customer service, Rachel. She's doing great. So we've got good documentation, I think, on the new processes, and we're waiting to hear what the customer feedback is when they receive the bills. So I'll give you another update coming up in a month or so, and we really don't know what to expect as far as how this will change the workload in the office or what our call volume will look like, but customer service is grateful for the board's direction in this. It's something that we've been asking for a long time, just based on working with the customers and hearing their troubles with, budgeting and how hard it is to catch up if you miss a quarterly payment and fall behind. So this is something that during this process we have received positive feedback from the customers on the proposed change, and so we're hoping this will be something that makes our bill a little easier to understand and will benefit our customers moving forward. So, like I said, thank you, and we will bring another update on how it's going once we get through this first cycle. But the hard part is over. We will continue to do outreach to the customers to encourage signing up for paperless billing and automatic payments. So that's our big kind of marketing push moving forward.
I would say good job, Paul, and Ryan, and the whole team. I think this is going to be great. Hopefully it'll alleviate a lot of stress in that quarterly. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for people to manage that. It costs us a little bit more to manage, but I think ultimately it's a good thing.
Well, if anything, our monthly bill now looks so small compared to the gas bills.
Our rate increases in percent, the 30% increases, and, yeah.
Every work actually happens.
Question, is this just some people that pay ahead?
Yes, yeah, so customers, and we have had some customers, especially like sewer living customers, whose bill was about $145, and now it's about $45 monthly. And so they've asked that same question, can I still pay quarterly or annually if I choose to? Absolutely, so they can do that, the sewer bill DB, but you can have a credit on your account that will be applied toward future billings.
Any other questions for us?
Thank you.
Just have a quick item to add in the staff report. Ethics training is scheduled for February 16th at 11 a.m. I sent out an email to everybody before you got that. Lunch will be provided, and it will be done by Brown Street Tire, free of charge. They do this for us as an urgency, and so it's done every 2 years for the board and managers. That'll take place, and then 4700 conflict of interest will go out next week. We get that via email. They've already has been done. Thank you very much for that. And if you have any questions when you receive it, it comes in the packet. Just give me a call. In there will be the whole list of, conflicts of interest that applies to the board and managers. So it'll be due somewhere probably around the middle of March.
You said that's training on the 16th?
Yeah, February 16th at 11 a.m.
Yes, prior to the board meeting.
Prior to the board meeting, yes, and we will have much provided.
Everybody happy to go?
Yes.
Oddly, I'm not the county. So this ethics requirement, was brought on because there was a general manager and assistant general manager of the water district in Sacramento that took liberties with the company stuff. And did things that were very unethical. So as a result, now all board members have to take ethics training. We have the AD-HOC. So let's, general manager report.
Okay, yes, I'm gonna tighten this up a little bit. I think the Director Haven, you have a time issue, and of course I have to declare it at 4:15. Okay. So we'll, crew students, starting with staffing, for electrical tech, we'll be using 6 on Tuesday. The posting for the grant assistant has closed. We're reviewing these applications. We'll be interviewing for water resources manager and senior associate engineers on February 15th. And we have open postings for water meter tech. And coming up soon, positions with underground repair water and accounting tech. Stormwater, we just quickly say at the plant, our flows are pretty much back to normal, and all is well at the plant. And in the field, where we're talking to the county, the city, with other water agencies, with Stantec, I consult for the county about our stormwater issues and how we can work together to plan, respond, and recover more quickly for future events. On the county collaboration, Director Haven, Shelley and I will be meeting with our new county supervisor for planning tomorrow. So just looking to build stronger relationships with the county and help us at the water agency bring more of our tax revenues back to the East Slope. And just last Friday, our water partners, Tahoe City, North Tahoe, and I, we met with our new state senator, Marie DORADO. Really great meeting. She's from Jackson, so she really gets the fire issue, and she's going to be a great advocate for us. We're working on a piece of legislation right now at the state level that will help get more funding for water infrastructure coming forward. So she's going to help us carry this along with Dolly and others. Also, invited her for a tour. She's going to take us up on that. I'll keep you updated. And finally, Alpine County. Shelley, Trevor, Jason, and I met with County Executive Officer Nicole Williamson and JT Chevalier, their PIO, and generally the number 2 at the county out there. Really tremendous meeting. First time we've ever met. We talked about a number of things: recreation plans, fires, fuel reductions, connecting with the washout and their own workforce housing challenges. So, really great to meet them and start building for the future. And the report.
Yeah, good question. I just, meeting with the county and basically the tax revenues that are, property tax revenues that are generated here. Do we have a sense of what proportion of that overall kitty that, I guess, the constituents in South Lake Tahoe are pitching in to that relative to the whole county? I'm just curious if we're getting that bug back to it. Maybe not necessarily all of it to SDPUD, but do we get some proportional kickback?
Eldorado. Yeah. Probably somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000 at this point. It goes up the same way as assessed values have. Because the last time we kind of looked at it a little more thoroughly was a few years ago, and I think it was 4 something then. So it's obviously gone up since that period of time.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious in terms of like how much of the property tax goes to the county, do we get that proportionally back, like back to the South Lake Tahoe region? So I'm just wondering if there's a number that we can, in addition in terms of what we're trying to get recouped back to the, not only the district, but the side of.
We can estimate it, we can't go within the exact, because they don't, the Delaware County doesn't break it out as a separate.
It's a big pool.
Yeah, but we can come up with an estimate, yeah.
It's kind of like California, its overall contribution to the, I guess, the federal tax base compared to where we disproportionately yeah, I'm just wondering if we have any.
Yeah, it was only 3 or 4 years ago that I was able to determine an estimate of like the tax per property owner that, or per parcel that was going down there. And I got some of that.
Well, you didn't get some in there, but they were taking this much and getting this much back.
Sure.
Okay, but that's what's going to close session.
And what are the closed sessions?
We have nothing to report. We are adjourned.